there was a push to potentially require landmen to be licensed real estate agents or licensed realtors in the state of Texas to do land work within the renewables, business, or, for lack of a better term. It's a broad statement, but um, when that popped up as something that could potentially start to go that direction, I know the landman community really voiced a concern. And
Yeah.
can you maybe step in and just tell us how you go from something that arises legislatively in whatever state it might be? We can use Texas as an example with this recent scenario that we went through. How does it go from voice of concern, right, from your community to action, and then maybe bring it full circle on the recent developments there with
Yeah. So
landman
I
licensing and TREC and things like that?
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting that so a couple of points about that I think are important as to when we talk our lobbying efforts. So we're not a political organization, right? And sometimes some of the complaints we've had from members would be, "Oh, you say this about," using the renewable term, "you say this about renewables, and then you say, well, we're only oil and gas." And, you publish letters and do all sorts of other things. What we really try to do is support the land profession. So if it impacts our members, if it impacts landmen, um, in the state of Texas or Mississippi or Wyoming or wherever that is, the National Association will look at it and try to get together. So we hired lobbyists to work on this with the Texas legislature for us. We'd expanded our definition of what land work is. Is it just people who work minerals or oil and gas? No, it's all energy resources. And so I think that knowing that when something comes out there that threatens our profession, who we are and how we make a living, that there's somebody who's going to go to bat for us. And that's really what AAPL does. That's when we hire lobbyists. We have people with all sorts of varied backgrounds and histories and political persuasions and dreams. But if we stay focused on landmen in our profession, then I think we're always going to do the right thing. We're always going to have somebody out there fighting the good fight for us.
Yeah.
And that's what AAPL does.
Well, Patrick's a prime example of the profession evolving, right? Patrick started his career working for an oil and gas company. Dudley Land Company spent 40 years, largely 35 years, working in the oil and gas business. But there's other energy sectors of the energy business that need landmen, and landmen need to fill those roles. No, realtor shouldn't fill that role. A lawyer shouldn't fill that role. This is what landmen do. And, Pat's a prime example of that. He transitioned to that through our company because we had clients that needed good landmen and good support. And it has to evolve, right? And it's going to evolve, right? Our industry in the energy business is going to evolve in America. There's just no way
Yeah.
around it. I think everybody who's rational realizes that an all of the above approach is best, right? So with that, the association needs to adapt, and it has adapted very well. So anybody who's saying, "Oh, I'm team oil," or "I'm team renewables," it's just a silly argument.
It's the same practice. I mean, living it every day, it is the same practices and principles. The terminology changes a little bit. The land work is land work. And I know, Brent, it's something you say all the time, and we live it. It's land work is land work. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, Brent, one of the interesting things this year at NAPE is AAPL organized what they called a CEO breakfast. And we'd first anticipated that we were going to have 12 CEOs come to this breakfast to talk to us about the new administration and what the future looked like in the short term for energy. And we ended up having 48 CEOs in a room for breakfast. And the first question out of the hat was, somebody asked, well, do you think it's going to be, what are you going to do with this drill, baby, drill? And the response, almost in unison from every single CEO, was, well, it's going to be build, baby, build. We need infrastructure. We need easier ways to get permits. And we need all energy. We need wind, we need solar, we need oil and gas, we need data centers, we need everything there is because there's such a need for energy, and consumption has gone up, not just in the United States, but around the
Across the
world.
world.
And
Yeah.
so to me, hearing all these CEOs that at first blush, you might say, oh, they're just oil and gas companies. Well, they're focused on the whole shooting match. And,
Right.
to Patrick, what he's doing today, and so many other people at Dudley, that's a big, broad spectrum. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to support each other. We're going to support all energy sources and make sure that everybody who wants one can have a job.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just a false narrative, frankly. I mean, anybody I talk to, the developers that I work with on a daily basis, when we go to these conferences, there isn't one side that says, we're more important than that side. We need to work in unison. And then that's just the reality. So there's a giant fallacy that's surrounding the whole narrative,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately.
So I think that's one thing, AAPL is working really hard on is how do we engage more people working in alternative energy sources? Um, oh, we have a member that joined, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago now. All he does is work in alternative energy, and he brought 20 of his young land people aboard AAPL. Well, that's going to help us. To the earlier point about listening and understanding what it is we do, those are conversations that we need to keep having.
Yeah. Well, like as business evolves, right, it's like water. It's going to flow the path of least resistance. It's going to find its way, right?
Right. Yeah.
It starts with a flood coming down from the mountains, but ultimately you get aligned. And that's what successful business requires, right? The oil and gas business is mature, it's refined, it's efficient, it's very much knows how and what to do. I mean, we've proven that. The alternative side of the business is new. It's in its infancy, really, from a
Yes.
maturity standpoint. And so, they're going to find ways to make money. These businesses have to be profitable. And I think we're starting to see that. It's like, oh, data centers, they need natural gas.
Right.
Wow. How can I do this? How can I build these projects behind the meter and feed it with oil and gas development? I think we're starting to see all these things come together, and industry and business is starting to recognize how can all this work together? How does it make sense for my shareholder or for the person who's trying to build something to turn it and make money, for private equity, for all this investment that's in the space? It's going to have to align and work together. And landmen are the conduits for all that. And the association is representing that well. And I think it will continue to represent as well and evolve in that sense. And frankly, the things, code of ethics, education, when you think about why Dudley Land Company requires its people to be members, it's so that they have a place and a community that can bridge that gap, right? Have an association,
Right.
be involved in something that can give them access to education, to networking, to community, to a voice legislatively, right? This whole thing in Texas with the TREC licensing was a big deal. It could potentially,
Right.
if that would have gone the wrong way, could have potentially really affected a lot of landmen, you know, not just in Texas, across the country. Whether we like it or not, people look to Texas for, how are things being handled in Texas? We're at the forefront of development, both oil and gas and all the alternatives. So it's a big deal. And Nancy, your involvement, the association's involvement, all the committee members' involvement was key in that. And we're very fortunate that corrected itself, and landmen can do land work and even further locked in what it is that we do and how it's defined and how the legislature is going to look at us as landmen and what we do. And hopefully, keep things like that from actually slipping through the cracks and get put in the
Yeah.
law and causing a problem for all of us.
Yeah, I think that just goes directly back to the governmental affairs. Somebody's watching that. Somebody on staff at AAPL has an eagle eye on that every single solitary day. So hopefully we're safe on that.
Yeah.
Something else will happen. Yeah.